Aloha, everyone. As we wait for folks to jump on, I just want to remind us that we are going to be on this webinar. If you have questions, please enter that in the chat. I do believe everyone will be automatically muted for this one. But as there are questions, we will monitor the chats. We want to know who's here. So if you could drop your name and what organization you're representing in the chats, please do that now as we wait for more people to come in. Mahalo.
Lots of familiar names in the chat. Hi, everybody. I wish we could see your faces.
We have such a large group today that we are in webinar mode. So unfortunately, we won't get as much interaction as we would like, especially when we used to do these in person. But we definitely are happy to see all the familiar names. We'll probably get started in about 2 more minutes. So go use the bathroom if you need to. Get your notepads ready to go, and we will be getting started at 11:05. Yes. Oh, I love seeing all these very familiar names. And a lot of new faces. Look at that. I love this. Welcome, welcome. About 1 more minute. Wonderful, wonderful. Yep, we're just looking for people to introduce themselves and the organization they're representing today. We are in webinar mode, so unfortunately we cannot see your faces. And we usually do this meeting in person, so we are really bummed that we can't do that again, but we are very happy to see all the familiar names on this call today. And we're excited to get this information out to you. As we prepare to get started, I actually wanted to invite Maka Kasan-Fisher from the Hawaii Tourism Authority to offer an opening protocol to get our meeting started.
Mahalo ke hau, aloha nui kākou, aloha kakahiaka kākou, mahalo I keia, ako ana mai I keia kakahiaka nei. Thanks for gathering and joining us for this webinar. He leo aloha, he leo mahalo, ya kākou apau. O nauna I ka halame ka lehua, he halelehua noi ana ka noi. O ka uno ia e ano I nei e li ane ho I o ka hiki mai. A hiki mai no o ko a hiki puno me ke aloha. Aloha e, aloha e, aloha e.
Mahalo, Maka. All right. So this is a really brief overview of today's agenda. We'll be doing some introductions of the team today. I will be passing it off to the Hawaii Tourism Authority to share a bit about their strategic plan and other new things that are happening with them. And then we will review the RFPs along with the application process and then open for questions toward the end. We will have one other opportunity for questions once HTA has completed their portion of what they wanted to share, the information they wanted to share today. And then we'll open again after the application process is described. I guess we can move on now to introductions. And we'll move this along. So aloha, everybody. My name is Kihau Meyer. I am from the Hawaii Community Foundation. You may be familiar with my name and or my face, I used to operate these two programs at the Hawaii Tourism Authority back in 2017 and through 2019. I'm very happy and honored to be back with these amazing programs again. Lucky me, they keep following me around, but it's okay. I love working with everybody again. I love these programs. So let's do this. A little bit about the Hawaii Community Foundation. HCF embarked on a new century, recognizing that Hawaii is facing a series of really complex challenges that exist within our larger system. And we've created the change framework to understand how issues are interconnected, how we can reach out to others in the community and arrive at solutions that are collaborative and that possibly could stick. And so our role in this time has been a convener of partners, an advocate, a grant maker, and a fundraiser. And so with this opportunity of working with the Hawaii Tourism Authority, we found that this partnership really brings together really important things about HCF's position and using its resources and capacity to also meet the needs of the Hawaii Tourism Authority and their strategic plans and how we're naturally aligning our work. So what we like to say, it's all about shared goals, common data, and collective action. And as you know, these two programs that we're discussing today are funded by tourism reinvestment funds, which are authorized and operated through the Hawaii Tourism Authority. And so to learn more about that, I want to actually pass this on to Hawaii Tourism Authority's team. And I'm going to have Maka Kesan Fisher introduce that team to you today.
Mahalo ke hau. Aloha again, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning on this webinar to introduce and inform you about our RFPs for Aloha Āina and Kūkulu Ola programs. First, I would like to introduce our HTA team. We're super honored and grateful to have joining us this morning our HTA board members, George Kam and David Arakawa.
Aloha.
Mahalo. As well as our Chief Brand Officer, Kalanika Ana and Caroline Anderson. We also have joining us this morning from the Oahu Visitors Bureau, Noilani Schilling-Wheeler and Catherine Orlans.
Aloha, kako.
Mahalo.
If I could add two more.
Yes.
We also have two other board members out in audience land. Sherry Menor McNamara is also an HTA board member with us, and then also Dylan from our board too.
Mahalo, Kalani. And you can keep the mic and go ahead and continue into our strategic plan. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Maka. Okay, aloha everyone. It's so good to be virtually with you all. I think what I wanted to cover today is a little bit about the vision that our board and our leadership team have for where we're going. And for us, it's been a pivot. We've heard a lot from community members over the pandemic, as well as before the pandemic. And so really that signal and that shift started when our board adopted our new strategic plan in January of 2020. Within that strategic plan, there were 4 key pillars. Next slide, please. That really were intended to be the strength of who we are as a community. And so it recognizes these 4 areas: our natural resources, our Hawaiian culture, community, and brand marketing. And really the integration of those 4 things is how we feel like we create a sustainable platform for us to manage the transition into tourism or of tourism into a regenerative tourism model. And what we mean by regenerative tourism is one that is holistic in nature, right? It has to take into account all of the things, impacts, good and bad, of tourism on our communities and manage them holistically. And so each pillar in the strat plan has a role to play in how we do that. And what we envision through this process by engaging community, like you folks, is how do we get to where we want to be? We recognize, we heard loud and clear that there are things that need to be improved upon, and we hear that. And so this is part of that. We know that by moving resources and empowering you folks as community-based nonprofits at the source of the problem, right, is really a way that we can go ahead and move us forward in a really meaningful and impactful way. And so part of the Kūkulu Ola and Aloha Āina and community enrichment programs collectively are a means by which for us to do that. And in some ways, some might say to get out of the way, because we know you folks are closest on the ground. And so how do we support you? How do we empower you? And then how do we bring the support that we're good at to the equation and to the table as well? And so these 4 pillars really make up the foundation of everything that we're doing now. And then also John DeFries, our new president and CEO, who joined us just about a year ago in September of last year, really challenged us as staff and our contractors with this idea of malama ku'uhome. How do we truly take care of our home? How do we make those investments and shifts that will allow us to do that? Because we know for the generations that are yet to come, we have a responsibility to be good ancestors to them, if you will. And so part of this is how we do that. And so I really kind of just wanted to set that foundation at a high level of where we're going as a tourism authority, the changes we've made. My new role as Chief Brand Officer is a direct relationship to that change that our board approved in July. So I now have the responsibility to integrate these 4 pillars and their implementation. And also we're really lucky that we had a team member in Caroline Anderson who is trained as a planner and has been promoted into a director of planning role. And so all of these shifts that we're making collectively, we believe are the means by which to respond better to what we're hearing from our community. And I want to actually turn it over to Caroline Anderson, now our Director of Planning, to speak to the Destination Management Action Plans and how you folks can help us accomplish what our community has signaled to us that they want to see. So Caroline, the floor is yours.
Mahalo Kalani, aloha everyone. So happy to be here. And as Kalani mentioned, our strategic plan, in it, one of the things that we wanted to do was, or what it called for was a focus on destination management. And so last year we embarked on creating destination management action plans for each island. And the whole purpose of these destination management action plans, otherwise known as DMAPs, was really to rebuild tourism to the type of tourism that the residents want to see for that island. And so the Oahu DMap was recently completed, released to the public in August. It was a partnership with the City and County of Honolulu and the Oahu Visitors Bureau. And I'd like to recognize the Oahu DMap steering committee members who are part of it, who really did formulate the actions. And I see some of them are on the call right now. So first off, recognizing Nolani Schilling-Wheeler with the Oahu Visitors Bureau, our board member, Sherry Minor McNamara, as well as June Matsumoto. So thank you for your time and effort with this. And also wanted to thank those who participated in providing feedback and input to the draft actions. Please know that the steering committee, as well as HTA and the city and county, we really looked at the community input. And so what you see before you with Oahu DMap, the actions came from the community, and we are invested in making sure that these actions move forward. And so you can see here the vision for tourism that the steering committee has, as well as for tourism for Oahu. And I also wanted to recognize, like Maka did, Catherine Orleans. She's with Oahu Visitors Bureau, the destination manager. And, through our funding, we wanted to make sure that the Oahu DMAP is also, the actions are continued to be carried forward. So welcome aboard, Catherine, to the family. Next slide, please. And so we are moving on the Oahu DMAP actions or sub-actions, and you can see here the sub-actions which relate to the Kūkulu Ola and Aloha Āina program. And, the plan is moving forward like all the other the neighbor islands plans. And I want to make sure that all of you know that these plans aren't just sitting on the shelf, that they are moving. And we appreciate all of you on the call today for your support and your commitment to helping the communities that you're a part of. And again, wanted to just thank you for taking the time to be part of the conversation. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Caroline and Kalani, for sharing the important information about the new strategic plan and the DMAPs with us. It really helps give context to the connection to the Kūkulu Ola and Aloha Āina Ps. At this time, I'm going to have Maka Kkulu to walk us through the RFPs.
Mahalo Kihao. There we are. So Kūkulu Ola Program and Aloha Āina Program, the reason why we're here today. We're super excited to be able to offer these programs and the opportunity for funding for our community partners again. The Hawaii Community Foundation has been contracted to administer these two programs, and the far right pillar that you see there, the Community Enrichment Program, will be administered by Hawaii Visitors Convention Bureau. We actually released the RFP announcement today. And so if you would like that sent to you, actually, you know what? We'll send the email to those that have registered that RFP announcement to your registration email. Thanks, Kihao. Next slide. Our Kūkulu Ola program has been in existence for a long time. And unfortunately, last year and the year before, we did need to cut back on funds and the opportunity to continue funding due to COVID and the pandemic. But as I mentioned, we're super stoked and excited to be partnering with Hawaii Community Foundation to get the monies and the opportunities back out there to our community partners. Next slide, please, Kehao. What is Kūkulu Ola and how can you get involved? What is your opportunity to enhance, strengthen, and perpetuate Hawaiian culture? This is an Oahu webinar, but we've been going through all the islands and making it a point to say that Kūkulu Ola is not just island specific, it can be statewide. Next slide, please. We do have one person coming in through a phone, so I'm just going to read this for everyone. Kūkulu Ola Program seeks community-based programs and projects that enhance, strengthen, and perpetuate the Hawaiian culture and community. So if this resonates with you and you can align to our strategic plan and our DMap goals, we encourage your participation and your application and your proposals. Next slide, please, Kihao. The Kūkulu Ola program is part of HTA's commitment towards Malama Ku'uhome, strengthening and caring for our beloved home, and the interacting pillars of the 2025 strategic plan. For 2020, like I mentioned, we had to cut back 50% of the awards, and in 2021, we were unable to issue RFPs for Kūkulu Ola. This year, we're hoping to partner with you, our community organizations, that and provide funding to support community-based projects that enhance, strengthen, and perpetuate Hawaiian culture through genuine experiences for residents and visitors alike. And all applicants are encouraged to review and download the Kūkulu Ola RFP at hawaiicommunityfoundation.org/HTA. Thanks, Kihao. Next slide. Aloha Āina program. Aloha Āina, protection, enhancement, improvement of not just our Aina landscapes, but also our kai. Next slide, please. Again, I'll read this slide for our on-phone audience members. Aloha Āina program seeks community-based programs and projects that manage, improve, and protect Hawaii's natural environment in areas frequented by residents and visitors. The Aloha Āina program is part of HTA's commitment toward Malama Ku'uhome, caring for our beloved home, which is Hawaii, and the interacting pillars of the 2025 strategic plan. Like I mentioned, in 2020, unfortunately, we did have to cut 50% of the funding with our Aloha Āina programs, and we did not issue an RFP for 2021 programs. For this year, for calendar year 2022, Aloha Āina program provides funding support to responsible community-based entities with an emphasis on Aina Kanaka, land and human relationships, and knowledge to manage, preserve, and regenerate Hawaii's natural resources and environment. Mahalo, Kihao.
Mahalo, Maka. I heard your chickens. I love it.
Yeah, Malama Āina over here.
Mahalo to HTA again for being here as a part of our informational session. It's always great to have you join us when we explain these RFPs to give context to why these programs exist and who they're outlined for. So this is the part we've all been waiting for. We're going to go dive deep into the RFPs, a little bit of resources and details for you. First and foremost, we have about 3 million available between both RFPs. What that means is that we will distribute that as equitably as possible, but likely they will not be split 50-50, depending on how many applications we get between both programs. So we made a web page on our website dedicated to these two RFPs. On that page, you will find all these blue links on the bottom under resources. This should be everything you need to complete your proposal. So you'll have the two RFPs available, the press release that went out on September 15th. Frequently asked questions will be updated once a week following the end of the sessions. We're gonna do a big update this week from all the previous sessions. And then we'll have here project budget form and the KPI form, the key performance indicator forms, as well as examples or samples of how they should be filled out. You'll also be able to look through the scoring criteria or how we're going to be evaluating each proposal. The Kūkulu Ola and Aloha Āina programs are going to be for 1-year funding for the 2022 calendar year. We're looking at a ceiling of about $100,000 for the awards. And we are expecting that awards will range between $25,000 and $75,000 based on historic data that we have for this program. There are no matching funds required, which is huge. I know everybody was really excited to learn that. After the year we've had, we felt like removing some obstacles, especially for our organizations that tend to be smaller and don't have a lot of cash on hand at one point in time. Eligibility is the same for both RFPs. So that'll be for nonprofit organizations with 501c3 status that are in good standing, or organizations that are government agencies operating within the state of Hawaii. If your organization is not linked to a 501c3, we are allowing fiscal sponsorships. Fiscal sponsorship forms that include, agreement between the two. We have templates available on the application itself in our nonprofit gateway. I'll talk more about that later. But just so you know that if you are seeking a fiscal sponsorship, we do have forms available for you to complete. Eligible organizations must be providing services in the state of Hawaii, and you may submit one application per RFP per organization. What that also means is that you can apply to both RFPs, but the programs must be different, right? So they cannot have overlapping budgets. They must be completely separate programs with separate budgets. And again, this is a 1-year grant cycle. The organizations that were previously or currently funded by Hawaii Community Foundation and the Hawaii Tourism Authority must be in good standing with both organizations, meaning no outstanding final reports, no outstanding deliverables. If you are curious to know if you are you do owe a report or something to HCF, I will provide you a link at the end for a support ticket form where you can request an audit of any outstanding final reports. For the HTA inquiries, you can send me an email. I'll provide an email at the end of this presentation with an inquiry about your HTA standing, and we can forward a list to MACA to provide confirmation. It's important to note that event and festival type projects should be applying to the Community Enrichment Program, which was, I believe is going to be released today. Events and festivals are considered standalone, non-recurring. So this will be a single date, in-person or virtual events. If you do have recurring like workshops or a series, you can consider applying to Aloha Āina or Kūkulu Ola. But it really will come down to what the goal of your program is. If the goal of your program is really aligned to the deliverables of Aloha Āina Kūkulu Ola, and you are a event or multi-date program, then you should apply to one of these two RFPs. But when you have access to the Community Enrichment Program RFP, I would recommend you review both and consider what's the best fit. And staff at HCF is happy to help answer that question, as well as staff at the Hawaii Convention Visitors Bureau. Non-allowable expenses are both listed in the RFPs. This is just a general list that you'll find within the RFP that outlines which line items should not be included on your program budgets. And so it's really important that when you're working on your budget that you reference this list to make sure that everything that you are putting down is an eligible budget item or expense. The criteria breaks down with 40% of your score going toward project components, 30% going toward your impact, which is your key performance indicators, 10% going to your capacity, and 20% to your project budget. To break that down further, project components are including all the goals and objectives listed in the RFPs. So this is in particular is for Kūkulu Ola. We're looking for a clean and clear work plan and timeline that align also to the budget. Really strong community support and involvement so that the community that you're serving knows that you're doing this work and that they're comfortable with the work that you're representing on their behalf, and that you have reasonable activities for a year's worth of programming. The project impact is going to be the key performance indicator form that is available for download on our resources page. It's also available for download directly on the application itself. And this is going to be all the things that you will accomplish in that 1 year. Your organizational capacity is where you're going to share a little story about who's working on your project and what gives you that established history with that kind of work, right? What is your expertise and what is that knowledge based upon that you know that you can complete this work and within the realm of Kūkulu Ola or Aloha Āina. For this case, it's Kūkulu Ola. And then your project budget is going to show reasonable financial capabilities, as well as a budget that aligns to the activities that you propose in your narrative. The Aloha Āina criteria is very similar. The only difference is going to be the goals and objectives that are bulleted in the RFP, and you see listed here. Otherwise, the other elements are identical to Kūkulu Ola, including work plan and timeline, your support and involvement. Really quickly, I did see a question about what is considered good evidence of community support. You're allowed to submit about up to 3 letters of community support. So if you're listing partnerships, if you're listing that this community is asking for this, tell a story about, did the community meet? Did you do a survey? How do we know that this is a need for this community? And so you can tell us that story about, where the need for this work comes from and the interest if you're working within a particular community. Let's move this on. All right, and the Aloha Āina evaluation criteria, again, along the project impact, organizational capacity, and project budget, it is identical to Kūkulu Ola. So we're just looking for really clean descriptions of what you're gonna do, what authority you have or expertise you have to do this work, who's joining you in this work, if you're bringing in kumu, if you're bringing in kupuna, if you're bringing in experts, cultural practitioners, definitely share with us who is participating as your program partners to get this done. That's really, really important for us. And then the project budget, again, something really clean and clear. What I want to note about the project budget is, although that we do not have the matching requirement, it is really important that you list any and all resources that you're using to leverage this funding that you're requesting for. So this shouldn't be the only funder for your program. You should also list if you have private donations, leveraging support, in-kind support, your own contributions. We just want to know what other resources are going to be coming in together to make sure that this project is achieved over 1 year's time. You will not need to provide proof, but we just want to know the general story of who's funding the entire year. I mean, that's important. Major changes. So there's no longer the signature events program, which was also known as SIGI. And everyone that previously fell under this category should now be applying under the Community Enrichment Program, or SEP. All applicants must be registered 501c3s or a government agency. Fiscal sponsors will be considered the applicant on behalf of the organization that they're sponsoring. So with that being said, a fiscal sponsor will need to be the organization that applies and has the registered account in our system. And as previously mentioned, matching funds are not required, but they will be a factor in determining your organization's stability with their budget. So the more that you ask for, the more leverage funds we're anticipating you're bringing to the table. Decisions are going to be made by evaluation committee composed of HTA and HCF staff, community members, industry leaders, and subject matter experts within Kūkulu Ola and Aloha Āina. And the evaluation scoring criteria is available on that programs page that we previously shared. Okay, these are really important dates for everybody. So as you know, the RFP is already dropped on the 15th. We have these informational briefings running for tomorrow. And then we have a deadline of October 29th. We're aiming to get a notice of selection out by December, with the first award payments coming in January, just because we are at the end of the year. And I don't think we could get checks out that quickly. But January, I believe, will be quick. Will work quickly for us because we don't have to do contracting. Yay! It'll be fast, no problem. Nonprofit Gateway is the platform that we are using to operate the online application system. What we ask that you do is create an account if you don't already have one. It takes about 48 hours to clear our staff who are reviewing all the requested accounts. So if you don't have an account or if you don't remember your login, just do that well in advance of the deadline so that we can get you set up and without any problems. So once you're in the Nonprofit Gateway, what you're going to do is you're going to look for the Hawaii Tourism Authority links and you're going to follow it till you get to this page. And this page has a link for both the Aloha Āina program and the Kūkulu Ola program. So when you click on that, the first page you're taken to is going to be a copy of the request for proposal content. At the bottom of that page, you'll see a section that says ready to start your application. And then you will click there to begin, right? So once you click that, you're entering and opening a brand new application page. That next page is going to be, it's going to be labeled page 2. And that's going to be where you put all your application information. So this is going to be the applicant's name, the fiscal sponsor's name. This will be your federal identification number, all the real formal information that we'll need. Page 3 is going to be more of the organization details and program details, including all the project or program questions listed in RFP. The attachments are going to be on page 4. On the top of the page, you're going to see links for all the attachments that you'll need to submit that are fillable forms. So the KPI form, the project budget form, and 2 fiscal sponsorship forms, if you need them. If you're not doing a fiscal sponsorship, don't even touch them. You'll have to also upload a 1-page board of directors list and your organization's current operating budget and financials, so both income and expenses. We're not asking for 2 years because we know 2020 was really rough for the whole sector. So we want to make sure that you feel strong coming into this and you give us your best numbers for 2021. The fiscal sponsorship forms are available, and those include an agreement between the fiscal sponsor and the organization that you can fill out. And will also be another approval form that shows that you have a formal relationship. And then the optional attachments are going to be things like links to photos or videos, right? You can upload a Word document with a list of links if you have visuals that you really want us to see. What we want to avoid is uploading any videos or photos directly into the system, because it'll then block up everything. That's Akamai, right? It doesn't work with really high megabyte, gigabyte downloads. So we want to make sure that you just drop those into a Word document and upload it. You can also include evaluation reports or annual reports or any activity reports that you might be doing, whether it's a copy of your quarterly newsletter, giving us a good summary of what you've been up to. You can also include your letters of support, up to 3. And then some people might have a map of their project site where appropriate. You can save your application and access it later, which is wonderful, but just make sure you press save, because if you don't press save and you close out, it will not save. Once you're ready to go and you're ready to submit, you will be emailed the confirmation after you've pressed submit of your, and that confirmation will come with a copy of your application. You'll also always be able to access your application after you've submitted in your profile within the system. If you do have any issues with Nonprofit Gateway, the platform, something's not working, a cell isn't accepting a number you put in, anything kind of glitching, submit a web support ticket. This is the link for that. You can also find this link in the FAQ section. You can also find this link on our website. Just remember web support ticket form. What happens is one of our program associates will pick up this support ticket and will contact you directly to work through the problem. We definitely hope all these kinks get worked out well ahead of the deadline. We don't want it to compromise your opportunity. Speaking of that, the deadline, October 29th, 2021, 4 p.m. We do know that technology issues happen, glitches happen. We want to make sure you have a submission plan. Make sure that submission plan includes enough buffer time for you to make any kind of computer mistake possible. Power goes out, internet goes out, everything. Someone gets sick, whatever, you have a backup plan, because the most heartbreaking thing for my job is telling people, I'm so sorry, you've been administratively denied because you came in late, right? So please, for me, selfishly, turn it in on the 28th. But if you do have any questions, the most important thing you can do is email me directly. We can work through it. And then I also just want to make sure that you know that you're set up on Nonprofit Gateway as soon as possible. So I'm hoping the girls tell me, oh my gosh, Kehal, everybody submitted their requests for an account today. So keep them busy, but do it as early as possible. All right. We do have an open window now for questions and answers. Will the PowerPoint slides be available? Yeah, so I'm gonna try and get everything posted on our website once all our sessions are done. I will likely post a version of this that doesn't include, all the specific logistical parts of this presentation, but all the important information. So we will upload a version of this slide that you guys can reference. Otherwise, every single piece of information you see on the slide from my portion comes directly out of the RFP, except for the proposal application process in Nonprofit Gateway. Ile, I do see a question about volunteers. That's a really great question. I do think that there should be a contingency plan. If you can include the number of volunteers that reflect what you think you could reasonably do in 1 year, and then in the narrative portion, if you could just give details about what the effect of COVID is, whether it's a 25% drop, 50% drop in volunteers, just so we know what that number reflects. You can definitely share us that story in your KPI form, or you can put it in the narrative section. There is a portion where you can put a little bit more details on your key performance indicators, because we do know that the numbers were definitely affected, but we want to know essentially what it looks like for you should everything stay open, or if things got closed again, what that would look like. Minor capital improvement, great question. So I think this is going to be on a case-by-case basis. We've seen some small things like repairing or replacing or repairing small items like moving a shed or replacing a shed or something like that. But we're not talking like buildings. We don't want you to be putting fencing up. We don't want to be doing anything that's going to require a permit, right? Definitely small projects that might be like painting, maybe. We can go, if you do have a very specific question, you can always email that to me and we can walk through that together. I see a question on letters of support. Yes, you can submit letters from fellow nonprofit organizations as long as it makes sense why they're submitting it. Are they going to be a partner? Are they just giving you credence to the work that you do? Just make sure that the letter shares what they are in support of or how they are engaged with your program. There is no priority to the DMap. All we're really looking for is to see if organizations are aligned to the action items. At this point, maybe in the future, there would be a priority given, but there is going to be a section where we can note in the evaluation whether the DMap is aligned or not. Kalani, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I would just say if there is an opportunity, right? If you look at the DMap actions themselves, right? There's over 40 sub-actions, if I'm not mistaken, in the Oahu plan, or it's 34, I might be dyslexic. There's a good chance that you're aligned with at least a couple of them. And so I just want to kind of reiterate that the destination management action plans for Oahu and each of the islands are a whole of HTA effort. And so what that means is, that's why we're including this so prominently in the presentation today, is that we are completely supporting and envisioning that you folks as funded programs and awardees under these two RFPs would help us to accomplish those DMap actions. So I really encourage you folks to take a look at the DMap and see how you align. There's something there for everyone, regardless of the kind of project that you have, there's something there. So please do go ahead and look at the DMAPs.
Jessica, I have the same question. I do not know how many applications are expected. I would presume that I think on average we get about 70 to 80 per RFP. We could see more or less, just depending on where everyone is at this year, following a really tough year in grant making. But I would surmise that we're going to be around 70 or 80 applications per RFP. Debbie, great question. So staff salary can be included in programmatic costs if the staff are working directly on the program on the ground. So you cannot cover accountants and whatnot in your admin because they're not program staff, they're admin staff. But you can think about it as, is this person key in accomplishing the on the ground activities that we're tracking for the deliverables. Okay, Rebecca, great question. Yes, if you have a great project, you want to resubmit it, awesome. Definitely encourage that. And we're so sorry that COVID ruined that opportunity for you, but we look forward to reading through that this year. Kirsten, if we have our environmental permits in order, if your permit is ready to go and if it seems like a reasonable purchase, we can consider it, but it really does depend on, but a mooring pin doesn't seem too huge. What we want to avoid, and the reason why this rule is in there, is we want to avoid delays due to permitting, construction, install, all of the things that happen. We've been in positions before, we've seen and had to continue a program on for a year and a half, 2 years because the permissions weren't available or contractor fell through. So if you could find areas that could be funded elsewhere outside of that, that would be ideal. Things that surround that activity. But if you're confident that all the permissions would be in place by the time, if you got selected, then I think we could go from there, but provide as much detail as possible.
Yeah,
Kalani,
and
do you have
Kristen,
a
I really
comment?
want to
Yeah.
understand what something like that is in the scope of the project, right? Like understanding the kind of requests that you're making, you really need to be detailed about how it helps you accomplish the objectives and key performance indicators you're outlining. If evaluators don't see a strong connection between the mooring pin and what it is you're trying to do and the measurements you've named for yourself in the key performance indicators, it's a good chance that it'll get denied, right? So you got to make that clear connection between the KPIs and the objectives of the program and why something like that pin is really important to accomplishing it.
Another budget question, indirect costs. Yes, indirect costs are allowable, but it is going to be considered a part of that 20%. Yes, and confirming, Naomi, that your comment that yes, accounting staff are not considered program staff as they're not doing work on the ground. Yes, if you're Kei Fukuda asks if the target population is community. Yes, of course. Yeah, so you definitely want to just tell the story of the need of your program. Why is this such an important program to operate? What is the goal that you're trying to achieve? Are you lifting up a specific practice? Are you lifting up a preservation or conservation work? I'm not familiar with what you might be doing for this particular project, but if your target population is to engage community, then tell that story. It's super important that we just understand the context to what your key goals are. Kim Moore has a question about, are there still requirements for media license, location, and work for hire agreements given HTA unlimited media copyright ownership and usage?
I can take that one, Keha.
Yes, Kalani, you take that.
So the short answer is going to be yes, Kim. Always we want to be able to use and highlight the work that you folks are doing. Again, that work ends up in things like our monthly e-bulletin notice for the Hawaii Tourism Authority. So we are still going to ask for those media releases as part of this.
Wonderful. I'm going to just quickly browse through the comments to see if we missed anything. I do know that there are a lot of fiscal sponsorship questions that come through. It's just important if you are entering fiscal sponsorship that you have a good relationship with this organization, because they are going to be responsible for a big portion of the fiduciary duty, right? So they're going to be managing the account for the proposal. They're going to be receiving all of the award letters and whatnot. And so this organization's got to be someone that your organization works with closely and likely has a good mission alignment.
Yeah, and Keho, if I can just kind of circle back to Kim's point, I get that it created a lot of uncertainty for community programs, that big evil tourism was going to misuse these community programs for marketing. And that's not the intention of the release. The release is really just to protect the state and the Hawaii Tourism Authority. That again, when we share your work, right? So we often do presentations where we're updating our board or we're talking to community organizations, right? And we really want to highlight the things that you all are doing. Those releases are written in such a way that it would protect us to be able to share it. But if the uncertainty or the uncomfortable part comes from, it being used and your face becomes the face of tourism, that's not the intention. These photos are primarily used, like I said, our monthly e-bulletin notice from the Hawaii Tourism Authority. I often put them in PowerPoints that I give when I'm presenting to community organizations about the work we're doing and the pivots we've made. And so that's really the intention of collecting the photos, is for us to help amplify your work. And it's not used in the direct promotion that we're doing in the markets.
If there are no further questions, you can still pop them in. I just wanted to share this for anyone that might need to Helean, but we have major points of contact will be myself. My direct work line is listed here, as well as the email address that we're going to be using to capture all of the HTA questions that come through. I just want to ensure that nothing gets buried in my inbox. So this is the best way to make sure that your HTA questions or comments get answered. We are looking at Yolani Castro and maybe one other program associate working on this program. They are going to be the people behind the scenes doing all the work in Nonprofit Gateway. So Yolani Castro or MJ Laguno might be the people that you work with if you are submitting a support ticket, or who might have, if you have any issues submitting. They definitely are back of the house gang, and they're happy to be a part of this program as well. So if those two names come up in emails, they're with me. If you are emailing, please in the subject line include which RFP you're having a question about. This also helps me make sure that I am sorting questions accordingly. Let me see if there's other questions in here. All right. All right. Well, I just wanted to thank Hawaii Tourism Authority, all of your staff, your board members, all of your key partners for joining us today. It's really a pleasure for the Hawaii Community Foundation to operate these programs again. I'm really happy that I get to be here when it's here. And I look forward to working with all of you as you go through your application process. I hope it is easy and obstacle-free, but I'm happy to help wherever needed. So mahalo again for all your time. And I will stay on the line for anyone that has an additional question. Otherwise, I will be gathering most of these questions up, dropping them in our frequently asked questions document, and that'll be updated by Thursday or Friday this week. Mahalo, everybody.
Mahalo.
Mahalo kako. This will be ending our webinar. Thank you very much for joining us today. Further questions can be emailed to hta@hcf-hawaii.org. Aloha kako.